the harsh truth about life in maximum security. For more real crime stories, be sure to subscribe, like, share, and let's discuss your thoughts in the comments. On April 29th, 2016, the unthinkable echoed through the cold corridors of the Western Massachusetts Correctional Addiction Center, a maximum security prison. Guards rushed to cell block A, responding to the urgent alarms piercing the stillness of the night. Inmate David Dykes was found unresponsive, lying on the floor of his cell, his lifeless body surrounded by the stark fluorescent glow of overhead lights. As paramedics arrived, the reality set in. This was not just another inmate death. This was a tragedy that highlighted the dark side of life in maximum security. David, only 32 years old, had been serving time for robbery, but during his incarceration, he had become an advocate for mental health resources in prisons. His fight for better treatment was cut down too soon, and whispers of foul play began circulating among inmates and supporters outside the prison walls. In the aftermath, the administration initially dismissed the incident as another case of natural causes, but for those who knew David, something felt off. Fellow inmates began to share unsettling stories of neglect and abuses that pointed to a much darker truth buried beneath the surface. Reports surfaced that David had been involved in a dispute with guards just days before his death, leaving many to question whether his voice was silenced. As family and friends sought answers in the aftermath of David's tragic demise, what was supposed to be a routine investigation slowly unraveled into a complex web of corruption, neglect, and systemic failure. The deeper they delved, the clearer it became. David Dykes' death was not just a statistic. It was a warning sign of the urgent need to confront the harsh realities of life in maximum security. But the most shocking discovery was still to come. What secrets did the prison hold, and how far had the administration gone to keep them hidden? As the community cried out for justice, the chilling revelation of a troubling pattern of inmate treatment loomed large, teasing a terrifying question. Could David's fight for justice ultimately lead to the truth behind the prison walls? To truly grasp the magnitude of David Dykes' death, we must first take a step back to the life he led before entering maximum security. Born into a challenging environment in Springfield, Massachusetts, David's struggles began early. Growing up in a neighborhood rife with crime and limited opportunities, he fell into a dark path at a young age. By the time he was a teenager, he was already facing the consequences of his actions, grappling with substance abuse and the allure of quick money. Despite these challenges, David had a spark that shone through the darkness. As a young adult, he developed a passion for music and poetry, using words to express the pain and turmoil he felt inside. He often volunteered at local youth centers, sharing his experiences and trying to guide others away from the same pitfalls he had encountered. But as David navigated his early 20s, the weight of his past caught up with him. After a robbery gone wrong, he found himself sentenced to a lengthy prison term. What might have been a life sentence to despair instead became an opportunity for transformation. Inside the prison, David discovered his voice as an advocate for mental health reform. The experience opened his eyes to the pervasive issues affecting inmates, especially those struggling with addiction and mental illness. In the months leading up to his untimely death, David had led rallies and workshops, emphasizing the importance of mental health resources. His efforts gained traction among inmates and some sympathetic guards. Yet, in a maximum security environment where compliance overshadowed compassion, the administration viewed his activism as a threat rather than an opportunity for reform. In the days leading up to his death, David was increasingly vocal about his concerns regarding treatment within the facility. Reports from fellow inmates revealed tensions between him and certain guards. They recalled an incident that sparked an explosive confrontation. David had questioned a guard's handling of a mentally ill inmate, advocating for proper care instead of punishment. As the clock ticked down to that fateful night, the tension in the air thickened. David had become an embodiment of hope, pushing for change in a place where fear was the default. His insistence on better mental health practices resonated deeply with those around him, igniting a fire of dissent. But as advocates for change often discover, the fight for justice is rarely without peril. Soon, Whispers about David's growing rift with prison staff turned into a chilling reality. The clash between his mission for reform and the cold, hard truth of institutional oppression became increasingly evident. And as the community gathered to rally behind David's cause, the walls of the prison seemed to close in around him, the stakes rising with every passing day. Then came the night that shattered all hope. As inmates heard the alarms blaring through the corridors, they peered fearfully from their cells, questioning what had transpired. David's death would unveil more than just a personal tragedy. It would beckon the community to confront the horrifying realities masked by the prison's exterior. The aftermath of David Dykes' death sent shockwaves throughout the prison and beyond. Inmates were in disbelief, grappling with the haunting question of how someone so full of passion and promise could be silenced behind bars. Within hours, news of his death reached the outside world, igniting outrage among activists and advocates eager to confront the grim realities of maximum security life. Family and friends gathered, demanding answers, refusing to let David's legacy be reduced to merely another tragic statistic. A candlelight vigil was held outside the prison, where those who had been touched by David's journey came together to honor his memory. As candles flickered in the night, stories of David's fight for justice were shared, kindling hope amid the grief. Amid the growing calls for reform, investigators began their inquiry into what had occurred on the night of David's death. Initially dismissed as a hip-hop casualty of prison life, the narrative began to shift as former inmates stepped forward with alarming accounts of the conditions and treatment inside Correctional Addiction Center. It became increasingly clear that David's passing was not merely a tragic loss, but a symptom of a broken system. With each passing day, more information surfaced, as ex-inmates revealed stories of neglect and abuse. While some guards sympathized with David's cause, the hostile response from their peers became a pointed reminder of the risks involved in standing against the status quo. Whispers of mistreatment and neglect echoed through the corridors as David's friends began to piece together events leading up to his death. The investigation grew increasingly complex as the prison administration faced mounting pressure to address allegations of misconduct. Tensions escalated behind bars, with inmates rallying around the message they believed David had fought for, a fundamental shift in how the prison system addressed mental health. But as hopes of uncovering the truth mounted, fear loomed larger. Reports emerged of guard retaliation against inmates who dared to speak out. Michelle, a close ally of David's, stepped forward, her resolve hardening. She had witnessed firsthand the injustices he fought against and was determined to honor his memory by continuing the battle for improvement within the system. Yet the stakes grew higher with every revelation. Would those willing to advocate for change become targets, just like David? As the tightening grip of the administration became evident, the fight for justice transformed into a race against time, with advocates clamoring to shed light on a hidden crisis that could no longer remain in the shadows. With a growing sense of urgency, Michelle gathered her fellow inmates, igniting a movement fueled by anger and loss. This was bigger than just David. It was about life and death within a system designed to break spirits and stifle voices. Would they manage to turn his tragic story into a catalyst for change? Or would they too fall victim to the oppressive forces they dared to challenge? The final outcome remained uncertain, hanging by a fraying thread. One thing was clear: David Dykes' story was far from over, and the fight for justice had only just begun.